Hi Bible Art Journalers, this is our third video in the series of tutorials for Brusho. Here I'm using a scarlet and a burnt sienna, and we're going to do some stamping into the Brusho crystals. Now if I were to use water on the stamp to stamp into the Brusho crystal, it would just sort of push down into the liquid and spread it. And so I'm actually going to use a clear embossing pad to wet my stamp, and then I'm going to set that into the Brusho crystals because the embossing fluid in the stamp pad is not going to run all over the page. It's thicker. Then we'll give the Brusho time to absorb into that embossing fluid, and the color will develop slowly over time. And if we need to touch it up just a tiny bit with water and add more, we can if it's not intense enough. So here I'm just sprinkling on some of the green, emerald green, and then I'm going to stamp the leaves, and then you'll see me do a little bit of the different rose color and the burnt sienna with the roses. I really actually like the look at this point. It wasn't as crisp as I thought it was going to be, and part of it is the green that I used has a lot of yellow in it. But I made the mistake of adding a little bit of water. I didn't learn from that last first tutorial, did I? And when I did that, it actually activated the crystals that were loose on the page. I should have blown them off before doing that. So in the process of doing that, felt like I needed to intensify the flowers. So I went ahead and did just touch them a little bit with water and sprinkled more of the crystals on, and I only painted on the water where the stamped image was. So this is a little more intense, and you may like this, so in a way it's probably good that I showed both ways so that you're not surprised if you get the other result with more of a mottled look. So you see I added some washi tape and some adhesive backed ribbon, and now I'm finishing up my hand lettering. Here I'm going to show you a little experiment with some different water techniques. First is plain water, and we'll put some of the Brusho in. Next I've made a bleach water solution, 1.5 cups of water and 5 eyedroppers of bleach. And we'll put that in this middle section. We'll add our Brusho into the bleach water. Last we have a salt water solution. In 1.5 cups of water, we dissolved a half a tablespoon of just regular table salt. And we'll put the salt water on this far right. We're going to use the same three solutions again, but instead of sprinkling the color all over, we're going to drop it just into the center, and we'll watch how the Brusho watercolor crystals move in the water. So just picking up a few of the crystals and putting it right into the center, and this is the regular water. Now the bleach water in the middle again. And last, the salt water again. This last technique I'm going to show you is with a plastic bag or a piece of saran wrap. You're just going to put some water on the plastic, sprinkle on your Brusho, and then in this case I laid the piece of paper over it and worked it into the paper a little bit, and then I flipped it by sandwiching the bag and the paper between my hands and turning it over. Then with the plastic side up, I can see where I'm moving the paint. So for the Bible pages, I would put this onto the plastic and then hold the plastic and flip it over very carefully onto the Bible page where I wanted it, and try not to use too much water so it doesn't drip. And then I'll lift this off. Wonder if I can get a second stamp out of that. This would be a pretty technique for clouds. I'm going to let those dry and then I'll show you what the results are. Alright, these are mostly dry. On watercolor paper, they're going to react more to these changes in the water than on the Bible pages, but that's what we're working with, and so I wanted to see. The salt water tends to create a very circular formation straight out from the center, and it does not travel as far as the bleach water, but it travels further than the regular water. And because the paint is traveling further with salt water and the bleach water, then it'll be a little more diffuse color than with regular water. And then I really like this technique, and I think I'll try that for sure. This would be great for those flowers that I was using the heat gun to blow the paint across the page. If you are feeling unsure or you don't have a heat gun to move the paint, this would be a great way to move the paint where you want it for those flowers. Have a little more control that way. Okay, so let's try some of these techniques in our Bible pages. So for this page, I'm going to use the bleach water. And so I thought, instead of prepping the page and taking the risk of that bleach doing any reaction with the matte gel medium or possibly going through to my other page, which has a lot of color on the back side, so I wouldn't want it getting bleached out. I think I've done this in past videos, but just in case somebody has missed it, I'll include it here again. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just going to mark the edges roughly, because I'm probably going to cut this out a little closer than what I'm tracing. So I'm going around the words on the page where I'm going to put my artwork, because I want to know where I don't want artwork outside of this line. So something like that, and then here's the edge of the paper, and I'm going to cut this off so it doesn't really matter how pretty the pencil markings are. Okay, now my Bible can move out of the way and I don't have any fear of getting bleach on my Bible for this page. So I found some abstract fashion art online and just printed some black and white copies to give myself a reference and just to show you that if you wanted to trace, this would work. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that right now. Trace not the dress part of her, but just her head and arms and shoulders. We're gonna use our watercolor technique to give her a dress. I'm gonna go ahead and trace over my pencil marks with an illustrated faith pen because it's waterproof, and we're gonna find out how bleach proof it is, and then we'll get going on the painting. So we're using our bleach water for this. And I have to lay the water down in the shape I want her to be. In one of the earlier tutorials, I was talking about how the Brusho is made up, instead of just being like this is black, but you'll notice as soon as I start putting it on the page that it is made up of a bunch of colors that will make black if mixed. And this has just so many colors in it that it's very pretty when you can let it kind of do its thing and not mix it to a black. And then I also took out some purple and put it in my palette to touch into some of the areas. I like how in this instance paper is wrinkling and it is giving her sort of folds in her dress. And then we're just going to let her dry. I really like the way this turned out. And I think the bleach was a good choice for this because we wanted a lot of movement in the colors without having to put too much water on. And so now I've just got a Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen, and I'm gonna go ahead and just color her skin tones in. Need to find my eraser and erase my pencil marks. It's one of the things I've found about these Faber-Castell pens is that typically when you watercolor over pencil marks, it won't erase, the pencil won't erase. But with the Faber-Castell markers, the pencil will still sort of erase under your ink. So that's pretty cool for using these for coloring things in. And again, when I use a brush marker, I really try and use it as an angle so that I'm not smashing the tip, so that I can use them for those fine upstrokes for brush lettering. I could cut out right along the lines of her, but instead I'm just going to do the quick thing. I am going to cut this extra long thumb off that I fixed from the original drawing. long as I'm outside of those lines where the words are on the other side of them, I shouldn't have to be too picky about how I do this. Except for down here where I'm going to have words coming right up against her dress. My Bible page. And she should fit in there like a glove. Once I have her where I want her. This time we're going to use the saltwater solution, and I'm just going to put it over this drawing area that I've got. Like the other previous pages that I've done directly in the Bible, I did 2 coats of Liquitex matte gel medium to prep this page, and then I did a pencil sketch and then went over with my illustrated faith pen because it's so nicely waterproof with the watercolors. So you'll see here I'll just keep adding color and dabbing off any excess water until I get the color built up. You see I'm kind of drawing between layers until I see the final results that I want. And I'm just going over here right over the light bulb part with a shimmery gel crayon to give it a little glassy effect. For the last page in this tutorial video, I have my Ziploc bag sitting on the page, and I'm going to use that technique to transfer some of the color to make wings for my butterfly. So I've got a lot of paint on there. I want to make sure it's not going to drip, so I took a little off, and then I'm going to lay it on the page and move it out in the direction of the butterfly wings. Now that I have the 2 biggest areas of the butterfly done, I'm going to just work in very small increments with tiny drops of water and color to add in some variation to the texture of the butterfly and the surroundings. I think I'll probably get some flowers in there, a little background texture, see what I can come up with using this same bag technique. Now I'm just splattering on a little bit of acrylic white paint to give some speckles over the top.